All righty. Well, welcome everyone to the NOVVIA group series leadership training. Hope you're enjoying the training. Today is motivation skills for leaders. Before we get going, couple things. Sounds like Doug is not going to be able to make it with us today. However, did want to kind of walk through a few things. First, could you do me a favor? We do this from time to time, but I just want to make sure we're good. Can you make sure that you have your chat function opened, as always? Set it to everyone. It's just like, yes. And type in, boom, that stuff. Yes, on hi. Thursday touches Friday. Hey, Kyle, how are you? Fong, good to see everybody. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a wondrous Is it Thursday? Holy cow, it is Thursday. Wow. Good, good, good. Thanks everybody for coming. I hope you've been enjoying the series so far, kind of reaching backwards. We did DISC, we did communication. Hey, Carlos, how are you? We did communication. We spent a couple of weeks on your role. And then I guess it was just, oh, sorry, let me add somebody. Sorry, somebody is coming in. Last week we taught coaching. This week's what is motivation. So again, hope you enjoyed it, or hope you enjoyed it as we go through. Hopefully you got the handout from Doug. What I'm going to do in just a minute is kind of dive right into motivation because it's a fairly big piece as well. But please, as always, please participate. Really appreciate your insight. Hope every week you're at least able to take, one thing from whatever it is we talk about back to your job. Okay. So that pretty much covers it. Does somebody have something?
Yeah, Scott, this is Kaylee.
Hey, Kaylee.
Hi. I just want to let you know that Evan and Anne Marie are unable to join us today, so you'll see them missing from the chat.
I'm glad Evan and Anne Marie, you said.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do, and I know some of you have been emailing Doug, I think we finally, from both ends, got the recordings figured out. So those are going to start coming initially for those folks that don't make it. So I'll make sure that we get whatever we need to Evan and Anne Marie. Thanks so much for telling me that. I think that's the big stuff. So it's motivation today. Okay. So first question out of the gate. This is our first chat function question when it comes to motivation. So thinking about your team, thinking about the folks that report to you, just give you a minute to think about it. And then if you want to throw something in the chat, what's the hardest thing for you about motivating people? What makes that tough? What makes that difficult? Hardest thing, and this isn't at home, this is at work. Hardest thing about motivating people at work. What makes it tough? Okay. Danielle says identifying what it is exactly that motivates them. Yeah, that is true. Good, good. Fun, getting everyone to work as a team. Okay, good. It's funny you mentioned that, Fung, because there's the individual motivators, and then there are the team motivators even, right? Good, good. What else? Anything else? Hardest thing about motivating people at work. What do you think? What do you think? Wow. Okay. Generation gaps. That's a good one, Danielle. Thank you. Knowing their maximum. Okay, fair enough. Different motivation needs among the team. Yeah, everybody's motivated in different ways. Yeah, great point. Excuses. Okay, fair enough. Each individual has different needs, time, money, title. Yeah, it's true. Unfavorable historical results. That's fair. Yeah. Well, what I want to do today as we go through the training is, like I said, talk about motivation. But I want to talk about it not only from a how do you motivate others, but sometimes just even think about ourselves a little bit. Okay. So with that, again, hopefully you've got the handout. Page 1 at the top says motivation for leaders. And in the middle of the page, there are some objectives and topics. Do you all have that as page 1? Can you type a Y for me just to make sure I'm okay? Objectives, topics on page 1. Boom, boom. Good. So I'm going to ask you to do this for me. As we always do on page 1, can you star any of those that would matter to you? What speaks to you on that page? On page 1, what speaks to you on that page?
Hey Scott, what are we supposed to have on our page again?
You should have about halfway down. It says by the end of this session, you'll be able to.
Perfect. On it. Got
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
Good. Oh man, you had me nervous there. Yeah. So yeah, star any of those that would speak to you, and then at the bottom there are topics. There's, I think, just 3. I'm assuming. But yeah, any of those that speaks to you. Anything you like from a motivation standpoint. Yeah. Anybody willing to come off mute? And what did you star on page 1? Create, oh, sorry. We already have one. Create a positive environment. Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else? You can either put it in the chat or come off mute.
This is Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer.
I would actually say keeping myself motivated. I think I spend so much time thinking about everyone else that I lose focus on whether or not I'm still motivated in the same manner that I'm asking them to be.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you bring that up. I was teaching this class, true story, and we're going through and everything's going fine. And this gentleman in the class said, "Hey, can I call timeout?" And I said, "Yeah, what's up?" And he goes, "We're talking about motivation today, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I'm not motivated." He said, "I'm not motivated." And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, I'm not motivated to do my job anymore." And I said, "How bad is it?" And he said, "Think about a 5-gallon bucket like you get at Home Depot or something like that. And imagine there's a hole in the bottom of the bucket and it's leaking." And I said, "Got it." He said, "That would be me." He said, "What's really, really tough is," he said, "it's hard to fake it and help others be motivated when I'm not feeling it myself." So Jennifer's point is well taken. And that's one of the things we'll talk about today. Yeah, that's awesome. Carlos said demotivator. Sean, deep thoughts on a Thursday afternoon. Create a development plan to keep you or your employees to keep motivated. Can be a demotivator on its own if the plan. You know, that's a really good point. You put a plan together and you don't achieve the plan. You're like, well, now I'm not motivated because we didn't achieve the motivation plan. It's fair. Okay, good. Not good, but good. Okay, so that's page 1. Go to page 2. On page 2, at the top, it says, "What is motivation?" And then there are, if you notice, there are 2 true false questions. And then in the middle, it says motivation defined. Okay. Just to keep us moving and feeling good about ourselves on a Thursday afternoon. Don't worry about the bottom, what gets you going, because we'll deal with that later. But if you would, I'm going to put you in 3s in just a second. If you could just handle the 2 true false questions and the motivation question, and then we'll come back. So, breakout rooms, create. I think 2 to 3 is plenty. Okay. So just got you into groups of 2 or 3. Again, all you're doing is the 2 true false and the motivation defined on the top of page 2. I'll give you 3 or 4 minutes. Hopefully you've got likable people in your group. All right, I'm sending you now. Thanks, everybody. Ready, welcome back, everyone. So we were on page 2, just doing those first 3 questions, 2 true, false, and a defined. Question number 1. I'm looking for, so question number 1, it's true or false. Motivation cannot be inspired. It comes from within. How many of you said, well, let's just do this. Did you put a T or an F for that one? Just throw it in the chat function for me. T or F? What do you think? Just for number 1. Oh, I got mostly Fs. I'm not seeing. Wow. I don't. TNF. TNF. I see a TNF there. Okay, fair enough. In general, I would say it's a false. I mean, obviously it does come from within from one standpoint, but if we can't inspire folks, what are we doing? Now, whether they choose to accept said inspiration is a whole other thing, right? But I think we can inspire people. I know you all can inspire people. For those of you that said, somebody said tier F, can't remember who it was. Thoughts on that one? Why did you kind of say a little bit of both? Totally cool.
I said it.
No, it's totally cool.
And
What made you think that?
I'm not really in the cohort here, so I feel a little like I'm cheating.
Oh, you're fine.
So Nisha and I were together, and Nisha said false, and I said I agree, but I also think it's a little bit true. For somebody to accept that motivation, there has to be something intrinsic that's inspired for them to act upon it. So
Sure.
Motivation might come there, but there's something internal that needs to happen for them to have action out of that motivation.
I totally agree with you. I've been around leaders that motivated super, super well, and I watch people go, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not feeling it. There has to be, it's almost like a trigger. Maybe that's the wrong term to use, but it's something that ignites their interest or connects them on some level. So yeah, totally with you. Mostly false, but there's a truthful element. I get you. Question number 2, statement number 2. All employees need to be motivated to perform their best. True or false? If you throw that in, so it's kind of your second tier F. Ooh, we're more split here. I'm seeing 50-50 ish, I think. I lost count, but I think we're close. For somebody that said true, if you're willing to come off chat, why did you say all employees need to be motivated to perform their best? Why did you say true?
This is Kyle.
Hey, Kyle.
Everybody has some sort of motivation, whether it be money or family, or even a personal satisfaction, but everybody's working for some purpose. So I don't think there's anybody out there who shows up to work with literally no motivation whatsoever,
Yeah.
or no purpose at all.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Do you have folks that do, you can see my hand, I'm thinking, do you have folks that do this? They're good, they're bad, they're good, they're bad. I mean, that could be on a monthly basis, that could be on a weekly basis, that could be on a morning basis. So it does happen. I mean, even our rock stars. Now, those of you that said false, what was it about that statement false? What caused you to say false? Just curious. Oh no. Nobody? I mean, one of my arguments for the false side might be that, I don't know about you, but I have, for example, had in the past, my last team that I had 6 folks. I had a couple of rock stars that I would literally go to them and I'd say, hey, can you done it? Hey, would you mind? No problem. Hey, I need you for done. You know, it was almost like I got sometimes feeling like I didn't have to motivate them. And there are periods of time with some people where they are going. I just think sometimes that's short term, if that makes sense. Okay. More than anything, with those two statements, the true false, I can see both sides. I can see both sides. You're looking for a answer key. I don't have an answer key. I think it's part of the challenge of leading people. Okay. Now, the last thing it said, motivation defined getting people to do what you want them to do. Because anybody come up with anything good there? What'd you come up with? Fong, what'd you come up with?
Oh, sorry, we skipped that question. We didn't
Oh,
work
you
on it.
did. It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
No worries. No problem.
Yeah.
Roberta, what did you come up with?
Well, I came up with just to, accomplish the end goal. But Anthony
Okay.
actually had a really good one too, to benefit the actual team member and the company.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Outstanding. Here's what I had from a fill-in standpoint. If you want to go with that, it's getting people to do what you want them to do because, so the fill-in's going to be they want to do it. They want to do it. That's what I would put on the line. So the idea is you're finding out what motivates them. And once you do that, they say, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. So again, on the line, it's going to be they want to do it. Okay. So I just wanted to have you put that middle of page 2. Now at the bottom, it talks about what gets you going. I have a different activity that's going to kind of get us to the same place. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go past that on the bottom of 2. On page 3, you should have something that looks like this, I hope. And I love this slide, but I wish it was a 3-legged stool. I want you to imagine instead of having 3 colors and 3 components, this is every employee that reports to you, thinking of them as a 3-legged stool. And when I think about that, let me open this up for you. The 3 legs represent these 3 things. First, so it's how do I get, what do I need from my folks to have them perform? Well, first, they need to have the skills and knowledge so they can provide effort, right? So imagine that's 1 leg. Second, clear expectations, or I've got on my slide actually, expectations and understanding the direction to focus their energy. So the red is the what and the why. That's the second leg of the stool. And then third is the willingness to do the job. That's, is it important to me? And that's the motivation piece. So just something to think about with your folks. It's those 3 legs working together. You know, if they're missing 1 leg. Question for you before we move, and it's kind of off track, but it's not bad. The top right says clear expectations or explaining the why. Is that really a big deal? And if so, why? Making sure your employees understand the why, does that really matter? Is that really that big of a deal? And you can throw it in chat or come off mute. What do you think? How important is the explaining the why thingy? Okay, well, I've got a yes. Good. Why is it such a big deal? Why does the why matter? What's in it for me? Outstanding. Gotta have a goal. Anything else? Why does the why matter so much? Why is it so important? I think sometimes if people understand, Jay, if people understand, they're more likely to buy in. Yeah. I think one of the things that's really important as leaders is we take a time to step back and say, you might be wondering the why. Let me give you the why. Let me explain why we're doing this. Danielle, understand the impact of their task on the organization. Why does it matter? Why does what we're doing matter? That can go a long way. If folks feel like they're just doing busy work that doesn't really resonate, it's probably not going to be that helpful long term. Okay. So I just wanted to share that on this page 3. Okay. So let's go to page 4. I like page 4. On page 4, I'm assuming that's a glacier. Yeah. Okay. That's a glacier. And it should look something like this. Let me walk you through this. So can you do me a favor? At the top of page 4, you should have some white space. Can you write down the name of one person that reports to you or should report to you? And I promise I won't have you share it. The name of one person that reports to you. Okay. It doesn't matter who it is, just one person. Okay. So I want you to imagine that this glacier, whoever it is you picked, represents them. Okay. And as you notice, above, you have some part of the glacier above the water, and you have some part of the glacier below the water. So I'm going to start below the water. I'm going to start at the very bottom of the page. You see, you've got basic needs, values and beliefs, view of the world, conscious and unconscious thought. So I'm going to have you write down a few things somewhere around each of those boxes. So basic needs. When I think of basic needs, I think of food, clothing, food, shelter, water, literally basic needs. Food, shelter, water, car, it's probably in there too. Basic stuff. Okay, that's basic needs. Food, shelter, water, transportation. Some of you might not agree with that one. So that's basic needs. Okay. The next one up is values and beliefs. So that is how they were raised, culture, could be spiritual, that kind of stuff. How someone was raised, culture, spiritual. I had somebody one time say work ethic, which I guess you could throw in there as well. Values and beliefs. Okay. That's the next rectangle up. The next one up is view of the world. And when I think of that, that's politics. That's the news. I mean, it could be the market. How much are we paying for gas? How much are we paying for food? Stuff like that. Does that make sense? So again, let me hit it one more time. Basic needs: food, clothing, food, shelter, water, transportation, values and beliefs, how we were raised, culture, spiritual, view of the world, politics, the news, inflation, and then the top box, what people are thinking at any one time. Okay. That's like, so think of that as those 4 things make up the base. Okay. Another way to think of this, I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but this is kind of I think this is Maslow's, what folks are looking at from basic needs standpoint, physiological, all the way up to self-actualization. Now, let me ask you a question. As looking at the 4 boxes below the water, how much ability do you have to change those 4 boxes? How much ability do you have to change them? Let's play it this way. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is I can change it all day long. 1 is I cannot change. This is for other folks that report to you. What would be your number? Wow. Wow, Danielle, I think I actually like that answer a lot. Good answer. Anybody else? What do you think? Scale of 1 to 10. Not much. Over time, how people less than 1. Oh, that works. Okay, good. And I would agree. I mean, folks may evolve over time, but for the most part, who they are is who they are. Okay. Now, where we have the ability to motivate, influence is around the top, is above the water, around the glacier at the top. And you notice there are 6 things. Okay. Let me walk you through each of those 6 if you want to maybe put a little bit more around it. So consequences is when people do things right or people do things wrong, are there consequences at work? That's consequences. Are there consequences for action at work? Environment, what's the work setting like? Is it safe? Is it clean? Is it warm? Is my stuff safe? Stuff like that. Recognition, do I get recognized when I do a great job? Okay. Tasks, it could be, do I see the value in it? And is it varied? In other words, do I do the same thing every single day for the remainder of time? Or are there some changes there? That's tasks. Leaders' actions, that's you. That's how do you respond in chaos? How do you respond under stress? Do you tell them the truth? Do people know where they stand? Stuff like that. And then the last one's training. Do they have the knowledge to be successful? Okay. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Looking at the 6 across, there's 6, the 6 across the top, I just want you to think about your team, not department, not the whole company, your team. Can you grade each one of those 6? So I'm not saying to rank them, like which is best, which is worse. I'm saying consequences. You know what? We're running a B- right now. Consequences. Environment. It's an A. It's great. Recognition. We never recognize we're a D-. I'm just going to ask you to take a few minutes and grade those 6 for your team. I'm going to go silent. I'll be right back. Thanks, everybody. So the challenge that I put before you was to go around those 6 and grade them. I had somebody one time, we were going around and he said task is a G. And I said, it only goes to F. And he said, yeah, that's where we are. So somewhere between A and F. Next thing I'm going to ask you to do 2 other things with those 6. Number 1, if you have a tie for your top, what's your very strongest one? Maybe just put a circle around it for now. So in other words, if Jennifer has task and recognition of those 2, which is the strongest? Okay. That's first thing. Second thing, if you were going to pick one of those 6 to focus on, what would you pick? So in other words, what I'm saying is can't really work on all 6 at once. I mean, you can try, but that's really tough. But if you were going to say to yourself, I really need to focus on training my folks, or I need to be, the leader's action, I think of consistency, right? I really, really need to be better about being consistent. Okay. So you've graded them. You picked your top. And hopefully you're thinking, is there one that you would start with? Okay. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put you back in your groups for a minute, and I'm going to just ask you more, if nothing else, between your 2 or 3, what's your top? And what's the one you're saying to yourself? Yep. I'll try. I think I can do that. So just talk about your strongest one and talk about the one you want to start on. Okay. Let me see if I can do this. All right. I'm going to go ahead and send you, and we'll go from there. Thanks, everybody. Hmm.
Hi Scott. I had to join a few minutes late because I had a meeting run over, so I don't know if I got put into a room.
Well, let me
I
get you in.
apologize.
No worries. No worries. Good to have you. I'm going to put you in right now.
Okay, thank you.
There you go. Let's see. That's what I want to do.
I'm back.
I
I
think I
did-
have you in a room alone.
Well, I went to one with Fong and somebody else, and then I went to one with Nisha, and then it just cut out. And
Sure.
so I just hit the, even if you want to send me to one, I can always hit decline. And then I think I stay here.
No, that's fine. I think we're okay. Yeah, I was trying to navigate that out. So I think you're okay now.
I'm happy to observe in the group. I just don't want to be just with one other person where I have to be responsible for the content, because I am listening to, people talk, but I also am working
Gotcha.
since I'm
Totally
more in
makes
the
sense.
observation role today.
You're in the observation mode.
Yes.
Totally understand. Yeah, no, that totally works. That works fine.
Yeah.
So now where are you based out of?
I'm based in St. Louis, the St. Louis office.
Oh, you are in St.
Right
Louis.
next to, yeah, I report to Doug.
Oh, okay.
The
Okay.
HR generalist here. And the couple times that he's had conflicts, like today he's on vacation, his daughter's home. So they're having a couple days of family fun. He asked me to sit in, so
Nice.
yeah.
Great. Well, cool. Man, it's getting nice out, isn't it? Cool
I
and
know.
gorgeous.
It is. It's
Yeah,
really nice.
finally. I think I'm actually ready for fall.
Well, hopefully we get some. I feel like we're kind of skipping the optimal
I
weather.
know. Yeah, hopefully it's not snowing in 2 weeks.
Oh, I don't know. It was a little too cold for me the other night. I was like, what are we doing? I didn't know it was winter yet.
I was teaching a class and I had a guy come in from Minnesota and I said, "So you had snow yet?" And he goes, "We'll have snow by Halloween, no matter what."
Oh my gosh.
I know. And I was like, that doesn't sound fun at all.
No, no.
I'm just not interested in that. Okay, well, I think I'm gonna bring them.
Okay.
Oh, I should have. Ready. Let's see. How long have you been with CL Smith?
10 years.
10 years, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I used to do some training for them. It was down in the city.
Yeah, off
Looks like-
Gravois.
Yeah.
I attended a couple.
Did you? Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, it was always a nice location.
It's kind of hidden gem back there.
Hmm. It is. Yep. I think we've got folks from all over, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm gonna do this. I think we got it. All right, welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. So again, what I had you do, excuse me, in your groups is talk about the one that you feel like is your strength, and then the one that you might want to start with. If you wouldn't mind, can you throw in the chat function, what's the one you feel like you're the best at? Or the one that seems to be working the most smoothly right now? What's your highest grade? Can you throw that in the chat for me? What's your top as of right now? Ooh, good. Recognition, environment leaders action. Good. A lot of environment. Good. Task, Fawn. Good. Good. Excellent. Recognition, Danielle. Good. Good. You know, what's interesting about that is even though same company, depending on the team, depending on the location, can be different for everybody. Task followed by J, task followed by recognition. Good. Second thing. So I'm going to start at this point. If there was one you were going to start with right now to focus on, to say, man, we really need to bump it up, what would be the one of those six across? John said, what's it? What Jay said? Training, consequences is a good one. I actually taught a conflict class this morning, and I don't mean, Daniel, this is or isn't what you're doing, but I think sometimes if it's from a conflict standpoint, we don't particularly want to deal with it. Training, task, environment, workhouse, outstanding, outstanding. Just something to think about. I think it's kind of an interesting picture to get a sense of where you can influence and where you can't influence, where you're strong. And the thing of it is a year from now, your strength could be your weakness, but it just gives you a picture. Okay, so that's page 4. That's page 4. If you would go to page 5. Page 5 at the top says the power of positive attitude. This goes back to something we said at the top. I think motivation starts with you, and you may want to write that across the top. Motivation starts with me. Motivation starts with me, just like we said at the top. If you're not motivated at some point, that's going to affect your ability to motivate others. Motivation starts. Motivation starts with me. Okay, as you look at this page 5, I just want to point a couple of things out. There's a lot on here, but let me emphasize, if you look in the middle there, this is on page 5. We're on page 5. The check boxes in the middle, those are some benefits about a positive attitude. You're more on top of things. You can bounce back from setbacks, recharge the energy. Okay. And then below that, it gives you just a couple of ideas about positive. The first one it says is E plus R equals O. Can you write this for me to the right of E plus R equals O? It's really events plus response equals outcome. Events plus response equals outcome. That's the E plus R equals O. Events plus response equals outcome. So what I'm saying here is we have events that are going well. We have chaos events at work. How we respond as leaders is going to affect the outcome. If we walk in saying it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine, our folks follow that a lot of times. If we say, oh my gosh, this is a hot flaming disaster, many times it becomes a hot flaming disaster, as you probably know. Okay. So that's the E plus R equals O. Events plus response equals outcome. The second one is poker chip theory. And I just put that in there. I had somebody one day walked in one of my classes and he had company made poker chips. And he gave me one. I said, what do you do with this? And he said, I'm always trying to catch people doing great things. And when they do, I hand them a poker chip. And I said, okay. And he said, what we do towards at the end of quarters, different times, we will have raffles, we'll do different things with those poker chips to recognize people. What I also do is give people the opportunity to give poker chips to other people who are doing a great job. And he said, I thought it was going to be a terrible idea. And he said, it worked. He said, people really like it. People take it seriously. We would be in meetings and people would have these moments where they would share something that someone else would do and they would give them a poker chip. And he said, it just seemed to go really well. So I just wanted to point that out. But the last thing on there is ways to help build your self-esteem. And I've got some ideas on this slide. If you want to put some of these on the bottom of page 5, these are ways to help keep you positive, build your self-esteem. This is for you. This is the, I don't want my bucket to have a hole in the bottom. So I've got on here exercise, eat right, get enough sleep. Some of you are like, yeah, sure, right. Create an achievement folder, I think is on there. 5 things you like about yourself. Toxic people, be a goal setter and positive self-talk. Just give you a minute to get some of those down. And anybody know what an achievement file is? Anybody familiar with that? If you wouldn't mind coming off mute or throwing it in the chat. Anybody know what an achievement folder is? Anybody ever done that before?
Yeah, this is Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer.
Yeah, I have one. I keep it in my email. So anytime I get like a great job, you did wonderful, or some sort of even constructive criticism, I drop it in that folder, and then kind of at the end of the year or when I get my review, I pull it out and I'm like, well, all right, yeah, but what about this or what about that? So it's just kind of, I had a boss probably like 20 years ago tell me to do that. I used to keep it in my desk. So anytime like I created flyers or mailings or things like that, I'd always keep a copy and just drop it in there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great idea. I had one as well. And it's probably, gosh, it's been 20, 25 years for me too. And occasionally you're having a really lousy day and you pull that out and you go, oh yeah, no, that was good. It's just a way to kind of, it's notes, it's good comments, it's, those sorts of things. The one I really want to focus though on is the third from the bottom, the avoiding toxic people. Do you agree with that? That that's an important way to keep yourself positive, to keep self-esteem up? Is that really important? What do you think?
I
Brittany,
think so. I think so, personally.
who is this?
This is Nisha with Mark on the container.
Nisha, why do you say so?
Because they can definitely pull you down that same rabbit hole, and it can be detrimental to your career, it disturbs your peace. So I definitely agree with that. And
I think
that's
what
at work
I'm
too. Like you have to make some changes to avoid those type of people so that it don't impact your job.
Couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said better. You really want to try to avoid the toxic people. And I think the subheading, and we'll talk about this maybe in 2 weeks with conflict, but really thinking about, I've had leaders come to me and say, well, I have toxic people. I don't know what to do. And my response is, you may need to coach them out. You may need to free them to be successful elsewhere. Remember, we talked about coaching. Was that just last week? And we coach to skills. We talk about we coach to behavior, and we coach to results. Behavior toxic to me is a negative behavior. And I may need to free them to be successful elsewhere. I mean, to get them out of there, because if I don't, it's going to kill my team. It's going to totally destroy what I'm trying to accomplish. Beyond this list, anything you would add? Any other ideas you have to help build self-esteem beyond this big? It looks like I got 8. What would you add? What would a 9th thing be that you really try to do that helps you out? What do you got? What do you think? I don't think if there's anything else. I gotta tell you,
I would say do something you enjoy.
yeah, that's good. I think it's a great idea. Do something you enjoy, reward yourself. My wife and I have kind of gotten to a place now where we've really got we take long bike rides. We really enjoy that. And that my wife teaches kindergarten, and she looks forward to that after she's had 5 days with 20 different 5-year-olds. So it's a way to do it. Partner up with a friend, Danielle says, to motivate each other. Yeah. Find a positive person that you can kind of lean on. Make to-do lists and cross. You know what, John? That is a good answer too. I'm a checklist person. I don't know about the rest of you, but I live by that. And then I can look back and say, this is what I got done. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Anybody else? Partner with a friend, make a to-do list, cross things off. Okay, good. So that's page 5. Hopefully you got some things down from that. But go to page 6. I really like page 6. Page 6, there's instructions at the top. I'm just going to do it a little bit differently. You've got 12 different motivators. What I'm going to ask you to do on your own is go down that list and put a check next to any of those things that motivate you at work. And if you want to check all 12, you can do it. Is Cash on there? Cash is on there. Okay. I'm going to give you a few minutes. Check as many of those as you want. And I'll be right back. Thanks, everybody. All right. Awesome. Once you've done that, so hopefully you've checked some of them. I'm just going to ask you to pick 1 or 2 of those that are your top. Which are the top 1 or 2 of those that are really big motivators for you? Oh, Ronald says 9. Yeah, if you want to go ahead and put them in chat. So Ronald says 9 and 12. Input, autonomy, decision making, opportunity to do a variety of tasks. Jennifer, kept aware of what's going on. 8 and 9. You know, Jennifer, that's 8's a big one for me too. 3, 9, and 12. Man, I'm seeing a bunch of 8, 9, and 12. I'm assuming. Good. Awesome. See any more? Oh yeah, that's great. Now, good. So I'm seeing a lot of being part of a cohesive group of people. 3 is a very common one. It looks like Cash. We're not nonprofits, so we definitely want to get paid. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do next. Same list. I want you to think of, I think earlier I had you pick somebody that reports to you. Do you remember that? Did we do that before? We did it for the glacier. Think about that person. Can you go back through that list? Maybe, so if you work the left side where the spaces are, go to the right with that person. What do you think motivates them? Based on what you know, just put a check next to anything on that page that you feel like motivates that person. I'll give you a couple minutes to kind of think through that. What motivates them? Check as many as you want. What motivates them? Okay. Ooh, Danielle, good question. It's a really good, as you're thinking through that, one of the things you could do is ask them that question. It really ties into, so sorry, Danielle's like, what's the answer? Short answer is yeah. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. But even more than that, I think I'm going to ask you to do something on the bottom of page 6 for me. I promise. Ooh, we even had somebody put in what they thought it was. 2, 3, and 6. Wait, wow. Yeah, that's great. Do this for me. I'm just curious. How many of you type in why? Yes, if you could think of at least one thing that motivated them. How many of you could think of one thing that motivated the person you were thinking of? You could come up with one thing. Okay. Here we go. That's what I'm looking for. Most of you could. You come up with at least one thing. Good, 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 good. So, bottom of the page, below the gray box, I'm going to have you write down a couple of things. The first one is the question that Danielle asked, and that was, do you want to have somebody fill this out? I think if you want to do that, I think it's a great idea. And we can get you've kind of got an electronic version. And so if you want to do that, that's great. First thing. But here's the next 3 things I would definitely write down at the bottom of the page when it comes to motivation and motivating a team. 3 things. Number 1, if you want to know what motivates people, ask them. And that sounds really simple, and yet I don't know that we do it. Why are you here? What motivates you? What keeps you coming back? What keeps you coming in spite of the chaos? And it could be a number of different things. So that's number 1. Ask them what motivates them. Number 2, ask them often. And so what I mean by that is, think about this. If you filled out that page on 6 10 years ago, it might be different. It might not. But I think you ask people regularly what motivates them. Maybe promotion is example number 5 never mattered. And now all of a sudden they're like, you know what? I think I could do that. Or recognition never mattered to me, and now it does. Okay. So 1 is ask them, 2 is ask them regularly. Number 3, don't be a bad gift giver. Don't be a bad gift giver. And what I mean by that is we tend to motivate people in ways that we like to be motivated, and it might miss the mark. So in other words, just because we want for example, just because we think 3 matters to us the most, it may not matter to them the most. I always remember I had a friend of mine in my last company, and she was up for a pretty big award. She wins the award. Amanda won the award, and everybody's thrilled. Well, part of that award was she was going to get the opportunity to get this plaque in front of about 3,000 people at an annual event. And it petrified her, scared her to death, because she was actually going to have to get on a stage in front of 3,000 people. So now this reward, this motivator, was no longer a motivator. You know what I mean? So she's something to think about, you know. So again, big 3, ask them regularly. Don't be a bad gift giver. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. The other thing to notice on this page in the gray box, 2 types of motivators: extrinsic, intrinsic. Extrinsic is it motivates based on an external factor, reward, punishment, for example. Intrinsic, it's based on someone's beliefs, values, wants, needs. Okay. So in other words, once this internal factor is met, they'll do it again. So extrinsic, intrinsic, 2 different types. Okay. That's page 6. Go to page 7. So page 7 is like the old way, the new way. When I think about motivating, old way, new way. So you notice here, as you move at the top of the page on page 7, it should say upgrading what motivates us. Okay. You see you've got motivation 1.0, motivation 2.0, motivation 3.0. Motivation 1.0 is survival. And really that is, hey, listen, it's do that because you're supposed to. I gave you a job. What else do you need? You should be happy that I employed you. Very old way of approach, very old way to think of it. Survival. Motivation 2.0 is what's called the carrot and the stick theory. And what that is if you do this, I will give you this. The challenge is it's not sustaining long term. Okay. So let me give you an example. I was working at a company, and there was a number of trainers, and everybody's goal was to become a senior trainer. And so my boss said, "Do you want to be a senior trainer?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "How does one become a senior trainer?" And he said, "We'll just know," which concerned me. So what happened was he came to me with a project and he said, "Hey, Scott, do you want to do this?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, senior trainers do these types of projects." And I said, "Well, okay, I guess I do that project." And then he came to me and he said, "Would you be willing to help us schedule our 40 trainers?" We had 40 trainers in St. Louis and Arizona. And I said, "It seems like a big project." And he said, "Well, that's what senior trainers do." And I said, "Well, then I guess I'm doing it." And at some point along the road, I still remember, he just took me in a room and he said, "Congratulations, you're a senior trainer." And to this day, I'm not sure exactly what I did. I got a little bit of money, but then I was like, okay, what next? And there was no next. And pretty soon I got bored and I was ready to do something else. I think, this idea, if you keep doing this, or if you stop doing this, you're going to get this. It's kind of hard to sustain. So that really gets us to motivation 3.0 at the bottom. And on motivation 3.0 at the bottom, it really talks about 3 components of motivation: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Okay, so autonomy is, not being micromanaged, being, able to kind of prioritize what I do in my life, at work. That's autonomy. Mastery is what's one thing you're good at, or one thing your team is good at, or one thing your employees are good at. And then purpose is really the why. It's all about the why. Okay. Can anybody think, well, let me do it this way. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put you back in your groups just for a couple of minutes. And I'm going to have you think about more autonomy and mastery. What's one way you could provide autonomy or are providing autonomy to your employees? Number one. And number two, what's an example of something folks can be a master at in your work? We'll deal with purpose separately. I'm actually going to put you in the same groups. Where's my groups? So we're just dealing right now, bottom of page 7, autonomy, examples of autonomy, examples of mastery. It looks like we've got, I'm going to do something really quick. I'm going to move a couple of you around to make a little bit different group. I think we're okay. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes. Again, examples of autonomy. What would be some ways that folks can be autonomous? Maybe it's schedule as an example, something like that. And then mastery. What's something that somebody can do really well? You're really great at X. Just looking for some examples. So you're just kind of brainstorming those. Okay. All right. I'm going to send you to your groups. We'll come back in 3 or 4 minutes. Thanks, everybody. Welcome back, everyone. So what we were doing, we were on page 7, just had you focus on, so we're talking at the bottom, motivation 3.0, 3 essential elements. We were just dealing with autonomy and mastery. Before we do those two, purpose, again, purpose can really be one of 2 things. It can be, why do we do what we do? So you may want to jot that down under purpose. But it can also be, and it's very underrated, are you investing in the community? So you're involved in the Red Cross, you're involved, you're supporting a local school or whatever it is. So it's one of those 2 types of things. But let's go to autonomy. Anybody come up with a good example of an autonomy-like item? Ronald, did your group come up with anything when it comes to an autonomy item? Anything at all?
We discussed all 3 what we have on our own team. So from my point of view, I had a truck driver, and he gets fully autonomy to put things wherever he wants to how to work during the day. Only he knows what to do. He get the list, and how he solves it is his problem, and he cannot do it on time. If he needs help, he only had to ask. And then that's from my point of view, then the autonomy part.
So folks have the ability to make decision about how they're going to complete their tasks. That would be an example, just broadly for everyone. Autonomy to determine order. Kyle, in your group, anything else? What, from an autonomy standpoint, what do you guys come up with? Same or different? Who else was in that group? Carlos, anything in that one?
Yeah, we didn't discuss them that much, but yeah, it's basically, different roles. Like, give them the autonomy. For example, we had, a couple sales reps in there, and then the autonomy to do, things on their own. But
Regarding pricing, really
Gotcha.
pricing and
Ooh,
executing. We looked at it that way.
nice. Excellent. Good. So it can be choosing or determining that pricing in order to get a deal done. I'm assuming it's kind of where you're at.
Yes.
Excellent. It could be a lack of micromanaging, but I think autonomy really matters to folks. The other one was mastery. Did anybody come up with, when you think about your team, something that someone could be a master or an expert at? Did any of you come up with anything? If you're willing to come off chat or come off mute, I'm sorry.
Hi, this is Donna. Yeah, I would
Hey,
say, you know,
Donna.
there's lots of things that we can become masters at. You could become, I call them subject matter experts in any one of the categories that we sell, whether or not it's the tools that we use, CRM or Tableau. You know, I think that those areas you could become subject matter experts if it's an interest of yours. And
Yeah,
then utilize
absolutely.
them.
That's awesome. Yeah, good. Anybody else? Anybody come up with an expert-like item? I think sometimes people really want to feel like there's something that they're good at. And whether it's sales, whatever it is, just being able to, that's a great one. Man, Joe, you're awesome at that. Margaret, I really appreciate the way that in the example that was just mentioned, you know your products backwards and forward. And I really appreciate that in positioning people about subject matter experts. So if nothing else, just really thinking about on page 7, those 3 things and those 3 ways to drive motivation. Okay. So that's page 7. Go to page 8. On page 8, we kind of shift ever so slightly from motivation to engagement, employee engagement. And so when I say engagement, but you look at the very top of the page, page 8, employee engagement, and then before you get to the picture, it talks about the difference between motivation and engagement. Motivation is the will to do something. Hey, I want to do it. Engagement is emotional commitment. So engagement is, I want to be here. I'm excited about what we're doing. I love the company. I love the team. Engagement is, I'm really passionate about being part of where we're going. That's engagement. Okay. At the bottom of the page, I love that there's that picture, but it talks about like 3 levels of engagement. There is the engaged, the non-engaged, and the actively engaged. Everybody see that at the bottom? So engaged is people feel they feel like they're part of the team. They feel like they're part of the family. That's engaged. Not engaged means they've checked out. I call it quit and stay. I don't know if you've ever heard that term before. They're just kind of floating. They're just kind of, they're doing whatever they can do to survive. That's not engaged. Okay. Actively disengaged is not only are they floating, but they're telling other people that this is a mess. This is a hot flaming disaster. They're creating a negative culture for you. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Those are the 3 buckets. That actively disengaged. I don't know if you've ever come across somebody like that. I'm sure you have. I have. They're doing whatever they can to kind of torpedo. They're even telling people not to work there, potentially. Okay. That's the 3 levels of engagement. You look on page 9. On page 9, there's a what have we got there? 1, 2, 3. There's 7. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Remember, you had that employee before that you've used all the way through class today. I'm going to ask you to go down that list on page 9 and put a check next to any of those that are true for that person. So in other words, if the person's Margaret, you'd put a check. Margaret knows what's expected of her. Margaret has what she needs to do her work right. Margaret has the opportunity to do the very best every day. Last 7 days, Margaret's received recognition. I'm just going to ask you to put a check next to as many of those 7 as you can for that person. Give you a few minutes to do that. Once you've done that for that person on page 9, can you type in the chat function? How many checks do you have for them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It could be as many as 7. How many did you check for them? They've got all 7. They've got 5. Ronald's got 4. Wow, nice. Aaron, 7. I'm seeing somewhere between 3 and 7. Good, good. Okay, so I think the takeaway there is if they're missing some of those, why? I mean, an example somebody said was, you know, in the last 6 months, someone has talked to me about my progress. The person they picked hadn't been there for 6 months, so that wouldn't apply. Okay. Next question. I'm back to it's all about you. How many of those are true of those 7? Maybe you go to the other side of each. How many of those 7 are true for you? So in other words, Elizabeth says, I know what's expected of me. I know. Now you're doing it just for yourself as opposed to that employee. Ooh. Ronald, I'm assuming maybe that was for you. Once you Yeah. Wow. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Once you wow, 6. Kyle, which one are you missing? If you don't mind me asking, don't hurt me. Which one are you missing of the 7?
The praise for my job in the last 7 days.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm seeing everything from 3 to 7. Nisha, you had 6. Which one are you missing of the 7?
Same, the praise.
Same one. Wow. Okay. Roberta, what's one you're missing?
I have what I need to do my job right.
Missing some tools, resources. Look at that. Pal, you're doing a great job. That's awesome. That's funny. Pal now has 8. Yeah. You know, this page is kind of an illuminator for me. I don't know about you, but I look at, is there 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. I'm just losing my mind there for a minute. It's a great page to think about. And this is another page, Danielle, that you may have folks think about. Because if they have few of the 7 for a long period of time, there is a chance they can become unengaged, which can create issues. Okay. So that's page 9. Page 10 is really just some benefits that are pointed out about being engaged. So just wanted to it's just in there. But what I really want to do, can you go to page 11 for me? Question for all of you. I think we did we do new hires and rock stars and worker bees and all that? Did we do that last week? Do you remember that in the coaching? Okay, good. I thought we did. I've just done that section a few times. I want to do this on page 11. This whole idea, I'm opening this up on page 11. If you missed this last week, we talked about in the coaching section of having, you've got skill versus will. So the higher up you go on this 4-quadrant thing, the further up you go, the more motivated, the more willing they are to do the job, right? The further to the right you go, the more skilled they are to do the job. And so top left is the new hire. They're highly motivated. They just can't particularly do the job right now. Okay. They don't have the skills quite yet. Top right, stars. My rock stars, they can and they will. They're my best employees. Okay. Bottom left, non-performers. Non-performers, they don't have the skill and they're not motivated. Okay. Those are folks we're trying to coach, train, potentially free to be successful elsewhere. Right. And then bottom right are my bothered, bored, burnt, disgruntled. Those folks, they have the ability to do the job. They're just not motivated right now for some reason. So you've got these four, and then remind me again, what's the middle? What's the middle? They're moderately willed, moderately skilled. Who is that in the very middle? What do we call those? Worker bees. Yep, worker bees. So those are the folks that are moderately skilled, moderately willed. Good. I bring this up partly, it's a great review from last week, but partly because I want you to think about this from a motivation standpoint. So I'm going to leave this up for a minute, and I'm going to ask you to go to page 12. I'll leave this up so you don't have to flip back and forth, but go to page 12. What you've got on this page, and I think it's a really key page. How do I motivate the four different quadrants? Okay. So you see where it says number one, and then you've got some bullets below that. To the left of that number one, can you write this? Non-performer. Non-performer. Okay. Non-performer. This is on page 12. So it gives you some ideas below that for how to motivate a non-performer. Small step goals, increase direction, recognition for anything at all they do well, but ultimately we may need to free them. Okay, that's number one. Next to number two, let's write bored, burnt, disgruntled. Maybe you just put B, 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 D. So they can, but they don't want to. They can, but they're not feeling it. Okay. And so again, below that, it gives you some ideas for motivating someone who is struggling. Praise, looking at their skills. Maybe they need a mentor or a coach that helps them through a tough time. Something like that. Okay. That's number two. Number three, next to number three, let's put new hire. Next to number three, we're going to put a new hire. Next to number one, we put a non-performer. Next to number two is the BBBD. Next to number three, that's the new hire, or the new. Gives you some ideas. And then next to number four, that's where we put the star or the rock star. Okay. So it's just giving you some ideas for motivation by quadrant. Good page. Okay. You may want to tab that page. I think it's a great page to consider when it comes to motivating different folks. The thing I do notice, there's nothing on here about motivating a worker bee. So maybe at the bottom of page 12, curious for you, how do you motivate a worker bee? Any ideas you got? What would you do? How do you motivate a worker bee? What do you think? Okay, good. Danielle says incentivize. Incent them to do more work potentially. Yeah. Anything else? Give them some goals. I think that's a good idea. Press them with some goals. Jennifer, keep them busy. I think it's a great call. Keep them busy. Incentivize, set goals, smart goals, keep them busy. You know, I think I think there is something to be said for thanking them. Hey, I really appreciate what you're doing. Danielle, keep them away from BBBD. Keep them away from non-performers. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I almost feel like, don't you, Danielle, that we try to slide them if we can toward the rock stars a little bit. Maybe the rock stars will challenge them a little bit. Good. That's good. So again, we've got ideas. I love them. Incentivize, set goals, keep them busy, keep them away from those that are going to cause problems. Thank them. You're doing a great job. I appreciate what you're bringing to the table. Good. You know, one other thing you may want to do, remember page, where'd that go? Remember page, I think it's page 6. Maybe you go through an activity with them and ask them what's motivating them on page 6. Hey, Joe or Margaret, why are you here? And it may help with some sort of a good conversation. Okay, just something to think about. All right, that's page 12. 13 is a kind of a tab page. It says a appendix on it. I'm trusting. I do like, go to page 14. Sorry, page 14. I really like. This is a list of things that you could do to motivate your folks. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do on page 14 is just go down that list and put a check next to anything you either would do from a motivation standpoint or that you have done already from a motivation standpoint. Anything you would do? Give you a minute to do that. I'm going to go silent for a second. Okay. Anything you would do. So the challenge on page 14 again, it's a motivation checklist, and we've kind of broken it out into big buckets of recognition, tasks, responsibilities, personal activities. You know what's not on there? Well, I'm going to take a step back a minute. Is there anything not on page 14 that you do? Is there anything not on page 14 that you're saying to yourself, well, I do this? Another way that you motivate. Anything you would add? I had somebody one time really argue for food, and I'm not opposed to food, and occasionally it is kind of a motivation for folks if you're bringing in food for people or you have a food day or something like that. I think of it more as a thank you than a motivator, I guess, but hey, food's never bad. I mean, if you're going to bring me a sweet, I'm thrilled all day long, right? But it is a good page on 14. Okay. And then 15, last page. It gives you on page 15 some factors of engagement. Remember, we talked about engaged versus disengaged. So on the left-hand side, these are some things that really cause folks to be a little bit more engaged, feeling connected, feeling empowered, have a say in my goals. You see some of those on the engagement side. And then on the right, some things that disengage people really, really quickly. Not being respective. You don't ever have your boss ask for input. I think one of the big ones too is never thought I'd have a boss take credit for my work until I had a boss take credit for my work. That's going to cause major disengagement, right? But that's a good list there as well on page 15. Okay. All right. So that really covers what I wanted to talk about motivation. We've got a little bit of extra time today. Any questions you've got about motivation? Anything that really hits you, or anything you're struggling with from a motivation standpoint? What jumps out at you? Questions, challenges? Nobody? Ooh, options for consequences outside of a PIP being written up. Well, that's a good question, Danielle.
Well, I got one for Danielle as well. This is Donna. Is there, she would know, is there a budget for motivation? Do we have it, or do you just make it up? I love the poker chip idea. I was like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
good.
I think it's cute. I think it's great. We did one where we just did I've noticed in previous roles, and you handed the I've noticed card out.
Yes. Yes. I
Just
noticed
doing little
you.
business. Yeah. But it
That's a
was
great
fun.
idea. You know what, Danielle? I cannot, other options of consequences. One of the things, the only other thing I can really think of is kind of earlier in the game. Remember last week when we talked about the sorrow, we went through the sorrow model, and that's the more serious conversation. One thing you can do at the end of that conversation is make sure they understand what the consequences are if they don't change the behavior. But other than that, if you're doing a PIP written up, I just don't know what else it would be. Anybody else have other ideas for consequences other than that in order to make them stick and have teeth? And then budget for what that, Donna, would be regional level. Okay. Checking with Kaylee and Doug. Okay. But yeah, that's the only thing I can think of, making sure that you're sharing it. One thing too, occasionally I'll have folks that'll do a reset of expectations in peacetime, so everybody kind of knows what expectations are. And I share those, at large with the team and make sure they understand what's the risk of not doing those. But that's about all I got. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here. Danielle, I think, before you move straight to a PIP, it would be having like coaching conversations,
Right.
or like employee, like performance feedback and documenting the feedback, not as a formal PIP, but, working with them to create an action plan that's motivating to them. And then having kind of deadlines for those things and a plan for escalation to a PIP if those actions aren't met.
Yeah, that makes sense. So really the pre to the PIP would be a sorrow conversation like we had last time, if that makes sense, and letting them know what's coming before it's coming and
Yeah, I was
before
gonna
you get
say-
straight to the PIP. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say a PIP should be like one of the last things
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
should do. There should be so much more coaching,
I
and
agree.
just being transparent. Sometimes people don't necessarily take the hint. Sometimes you got to be a little bit more blunt and transparent.
Yeah, I
So you
agree.
don't get
I
that far.
agree. Yeah, I think you almost think in terms of if you kind of take what we talked about last week and then you talk about a PIP, you think about all that curbstone coaching we talked about, and having those thorough conversations and documenting those, putting them in their folder so that you're keeping track of those. I think one of the top things I get from folks, right, let me take a step back, that I get from HR leaders is they'll say, I have leaders that will come to me and say, we need to get rid of this person. I need to free this person. And HR will say, what documentation do you have? What coaching feedback have you documented? And they say, well, nothing yet. There's not much that can be done. And so I think starting very early and documenting all the way through, I think is huge. So yeah, it's a good point.
Thank you. Appreciate it, everyone.
Sure. Anybody else? Any other questions? So just so you're aware, the next two sessions, next time will be change. We'll talk about change management. And then the next one after that, so 2 weeks from now, we'll talk conflict. So those are the next two big ones we've got going. So just want to make sure you're aware of those. Thanks so much for all your participation. I know it's a lot. I know you've got a lot on your plate, but I really appreciate it. Hope you're taking pieces away as we go through this stuff. Okay. All righty. Well, if there's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Have a great Thursday. Thursday touches Friday. And I will talk to you in a week. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.